fastest teams to practice today. Kyle
Casey Kane, we congratulate him, his third career pole.
It's all three Hendrick Motorsports in the front.
There's a few movers and shakers out there.
Carl Edwards free falling for a couple
to victory lane is Joey Logano.
Get the inside line on who's fast and who's last before setting your NASCAR fantasy race team lineup this weekend. This is the Inside Line on MRN.com, presented by Hercules Tires. Now, here are your fantasy experts, Robbie Mays and Tyler Burnett.
Team Penske's Joey Logano earns win number 1 in the 2016 season. And my favorite quote from Logano on the radio was, "We don't need no stinking downforce." That's exactly what they did not need. And you know what? I picked him to win the race. I just had to say that before we started everything.
Wow, we're 30 seconds into the show, and you have to brag on yourself. Good job. I appreciate that.
Wow. We welcome you to our weekly conversation about fantasy racing in the sport of NASCAR. I'm Tyler Burnett. This is Robbie Mays. Coming up on the show today, Richard Culbreth will join us. Rich will give us his accolades, I'm sure, and that will probably be about 10 minutes of him bragging where he is in fantasy point standings right now.
If you have set foot in this office this week at all, it's been about 30 seconds in between. Well, you know, I'm 8th in points, and I finished so-and-so, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, he never stops.
He doesn't.
If you do not know Rich, he quit this show last year. Yes, he was hosting this show, and he said he did not have time to do it anymore.
And so instead, he stuck me with you.
So I am here instead of Richard Culbreth. And one other thing, if you don't know Rich, he's international. If you Google mullet, this picture right here that you see on the screen now shows up. Rich is all about the mullet. Well, at least back in the day he was, right?
Yeah, back in the day. To say he was pulling it off back in the day would just be a lie. So anyway.
So just Google the word mullet and you'll find that. He'll join us next here on the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show.
Got a question or opinion about your fantasy lineup? Give us a call at 8444-ASK-MRN, and it may get used on next week's show. The Inside Line will return in a moment.
O'Reilly. Father's Day is June 19th. If you're having a hard time deciding what to get, stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts, where you'll find gift cards and hundreds of great Father's Day gifts. From tools to flashlights, O'Reilly Auto Parts has exactly what he wants. Get him something he'll use this Father's Day at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices, every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Leading the race in innovation, Freightliner Trucks designed the Cascadia Evolution to lower your real cost of ownership. When powered by the integrated Detroit powertrain with a DT12 automated manual transmission and intelligent powertrain management, the Cascadia Evolution can achieve up to a 13% fuel efficiency increase over the first generation EPA 2010 compliant Cascadia model, keeping you on the road and in the race longer. Learn more about the Cascadia Evolution at FreightlinerTrucks.com. Freightliner Trucks. Run smart.
What do you love most about July 4th weekend? Is it the food? The family? The fireworks? Well, this July 4th weekend, add one more word to the list. First. As in the first Coke Zero 400 at the world's first motorsports stadium. Everything you love about the holiday gets a huge upgrade at the all-new Daytona. The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series Coke Zero 400, powered by Coca-Cola. Saturday night, July 2nd. Guarantee your seats at 1-800-PIT-SHOP or DaytonaInternationalSpeedway.com.
Welcome back to the Inside Line. Here are your hosts, Robbie Mays and Tyler Burnett.
Tweet us at MRN Fantasy using the hashtag AskMRN if you have any questions about your fantasy team. Also, one thing we've added this year is we'd like to hear from you. So if you can call in at 1-844-4AskMRN and give us your fantasy advice or any strategies you want, who you think is going to be good at Sonoma, or just make fun of Rich if you want. So just call in at 1-844.
Make fun of me. Or make fun of Tyler.
Make fun of you guys.
So speaking of giving us advice, Rich Rich, where are you at in point standings? Just
let me go
give
ahead and
us
get
your
it out of the way.
accolades. Go.
Yeah, I'm 8th in points right now. Out of how many's in the league now? 1,060
40 or something like that.
1,070.
It's 1,070,
Yeah.
And I'm in 8th place. So
Yeah.
and just a handful of out of top 5. Yeah. Thank you.
Tyler,
Thank you.
When
Thank
we
you.
have off weeks or races where we don't have to pick fantasy, can we get somebody else to fill
Yeah,
in
we
as
really
a third
do.
host on the show?
Why? What's that all about?
The next, you know who we should have brought in here, but he's too good to come on our show. Our program director, Ryan Horn.
Man, first place.
He
Wasn't that
finished
great?
first.
That was awesome.
And by the way, I have a statement I have to read from Ryan because he could not come on the show today. He couldn't, walk over here. The statement reads, I give all of my success to Rango Fowler, the fantasy chicken.
Pull out of the chicken, cross the road, and get to the left and the right.
Wow. The fantasy chicken, Rango Fowler.
Rango
And this
Fowler.
is the low point of this show.
One of these days we'll get Rango on this show.
Wow. He would beat me. So. Anyways, let's talk about fantasy racing now. So we get that out of the way. Michigan, what'd y'all think? It was a great race. Did you expect it to take this long for Joey Logano to win a race this year?
No, I would have thought Joey Logano would have picked up a win long before now. But we knew he was going to win at some point before the season was over with, at least halfway through the season. But yeah, I thought that I've picked him several times over the course of the season, and I won't say he's burned me, but he's not been finishing where he's qualified, and you lose points when he qualifies on the pole and ends up finishing 8th or 9th like he did at Pocono. But I had a feeling that Michigan, qualified on the pole. He practiced well. And I think this was his time, and sure enough, you had him as your winner. I had him as my winner. Did you have him as your winner as well?
No.
Okay, well, that would explain why. But yeah, I had him on my team. And then after leading 136 laps, he led quite a few laps and getting those bonus points. It really helped out in getting the 48th place finish this past weekend for me.
I've been surprised that he hasn't won before now. And if you go back to the end of last year, they won 3 races during the chase. They won 6 races total last year. So I was really surprised, and especially coming out of the gate this season, as much confidence as they had in the offseason coming into this year. I mean, I think, maybe aside from Joe Gibbs, the Team Penske cars were probably at the top of everyone's preseason championship list. So I've been surprised that they hadn't won at this point. But, man, they've got this low downforce package figured out because Joey Logano won the All-Star race, which was a preview of the package that we saw in Michigan last weekend. And Brad Keselowski finished second in the All-Star race. And both of them finished in the top 5 at Michigan last week. So they obviously have the low downforce stuff figured out pretty well.
Team Penske was at the top of your pre-race, your preseason championship list?
They were up there.
Joe Gibbs Racing wasn't?
Well.
Really? Matt Kenseth, Kyle
Well, that's why he's in
Busch,
300th place.
I hate you guys.
Wow. Speaking of Joe Gibbs Racing, they have won top 5 in the last 3 races, and that's with Denny Hamlin, a 4th at Charlotte. Are they backing up to the field, or is the field just getting better?
What stands out to me is Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch,
yeah.
30th or worse in the last 4 races. Who would have seen that coming? I mean, he has had engine trouble. He's been caught up in accidents. I mean, if you've been starting Kyle Busch, you're way back there in the back.
With Robbie.
Robbie, have you had him on your team?
I've not had him on my team.
Oh, okay.
No.
And I'm wondering, should I start him as we go to a road course, which he won last year?
I'm thinking about it.
I don't know. He's got to turn it around at some point or another. But I'd like to see it before I start putting him back on the team.
Yeah.
If you look at his last 10 races at Sonoma, he's won there twice in 2008 and in 2015. But his other finishes have been 25th, 35th, 17th, 11th, 39th.
Yeah.
I don't think I want to start him at Sonoma next week.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to hold off until they get that ship righted.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'd start Jimmy Johnson, though. What about you?
Definitely Jimmy Johnson. He's got the highest 10-race average finish and the second highest driver rating at Sonoma over the last 10 years. And he's got 7 straight top 10s at Sonoma. So I definitely like the Jimmy Johnson for next week looking ahead.
Yeah. So is it a sense of where Kyle Busch is getting unlucky, or do they have fast enough cars? Because when I was listening to the in-car radio at Pocono, I mean, it almost seemed like he wanted to wreck that car. It was so bad. I mean, he was just not happy where he was running. And then, of course, he's, dealt with some unluckiness. But, you have to think those cars are fast enough to win races still, aren't they?
Well, if you go back to Michigan last week, they had some debris on their grill at the beginning of the race, and that kind of what ultimately led to the engine failure. Charlotte, I wasn't impressed with Kyle Busch at Charlotte. He qualified bad. He didn't run near the front much of the night. So I think, going back to your point earlier, and we talked about this a few weeks ago, is Joe Gibbs backing up or is everybody catching him? I think it's a combination of both. I think it's hard to maintain the level of consistency that Joe Gibbs Racing has had over the course of basically the last year. If you go back to 2015, this is when Kyle Busch won his first race of the season and went on a streak of winning 4 out of, I think, the next 6 races. So I think it's a combination of everybody is catching them and they are backing up to the field as well.
I think Joe Gibbs Racing, they're still on top, but you're right, they are backing up. But what if you said Joe Gibbs Racing is not on top, then who is? It's not Hendrick. It's not Penske, even though they did win this past weekend. But really nobody has got the bull by the horns right now. It's not like it was, say, last year when Kevin Harvick was finishing first or second for most of the season, and you were saying Stewart-Haas Racing. They're the team right now. But I can't honestly say who is the team right now.
I would say at the beginning of the year, Joe Gibbs Racing definitely had
absolutely. But now it's different. You're right.
I agree.
No one's really got it yet.
I mean, our last winners, Martin Truex Jr., Kurt Busch, and Joey Logano. That's 3 different teams right there, though Furniture Row Racing is an alliance with Joe Gibbs Racing. But, we've had a Ford and a Chevy win the last 2 races, and I don't know. We'll see who wins at Sonoma coming up here shortly. But definitely, what about Chase Elliott from Hendrick Motorsports? Is that a big surprise? Because that is for me.
I think it's a surprise. I wasn't going into the season. I thought, all right, he's going to win Rookie of the Year, may get lucky and win a race, and maybe be right there around 10th in points. But he has got 6 straight top 10 finishes. He finished second at Michigan last week and may have had a chance to win that race if things had gone a certain way. But you go back the last 2-3 weeks, he led the most laps at Pocono. He was up front in the longest race of the year at Charlotte. Challenged Matt Kenseth at the Dover 2 weeks before that. So I think that is the biggest surprise, good or bad, of the 2016 season halfway through.
I was expecting a lot of growing pains.
Me too.
And I was thinking that he would be learning a whole lot of stuff along the way, and he would have some good races and he would have some bad races. But I tell you what, you locked him in at a really cheap rate at the beginning of the season.
I did.
And you were very smart to hang on to him because after Daytona, he crashed early in the race at Daytona after winning the pole. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to keep him on my team.
I think I picked him up about the time we got to Phoenix, maybe the second half of that West Coast swing. But going to Sonoma next week, I really think he'll be close to $6 more than what I picked him up for at the beginning of the season. So he's not coming off my team at all the rest of the year.
Absolutely not.
One thing I will say,
horny
he does struggle on road courses. He was never that good at road courses in the Xfinity Series. So this is going to be a pretty big test.
But he did win on a road course in the Truck Series.
He did, but he moved someone.
Well, that's all right. Hey, he won. The stats show that he won that race.
He did.
That's true.
But he did struggle on road courses in the Xfinity Series, mightily. But I thought he was going to struggle this year, and he hasn't struggled yet. I was a pessimist coming into this year, big time.
Other than the Daytona 500, and he got caught up in that crash at Las Vegas late in the going when he was running in the top 10. He's been solid every week.
Yeah, he has. What about Larson? He's close.
Yeah, Larson's close. We had him on our pre-race show at Michigan, and he backed up what we were talking about. He's been so close. He came close at Dover along with Chase Elliott, and he's just been solidly finishing in the top 5 and top 10. I said that team, they just need that one little to get over the. They just need a little bit of just to get over the hump as far as winning a race.
One thing that scares me about Larson, though, is we've seen, and we need to take a break here in a second. Throughout his career, he has had these streaks where he's run well, and then he's had these streaks where he's not run well. So how long is the up streak going to last for Kyle Larson? That's my question going to Sonoma next week and then the second half of the year.
Well, moving into the break, I do think Larson will be pretty good at a road course. He's done well at Watkins Glen. He's done well at Sonoma. I think he will be solid. We'll talk about who we think is going to be good at Sonoma coming up next, and then we'll even look forward to Daytona. 2 wild card races on the schedule coming up shortly in fantasy racing. We'll be back next here on the Inside Line.
Tyler and Robbie will be right back to talk more fantasy racing here on the Inside Line.
O'Reilly.
Father's Day is June 19th. If you're having a hard time deciding what to get, stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts where you'll find gift cards and hundreds of great Father's Day gifts. From tools to flashlights, O'Reilly Auto Parts has exactly what he wants. Get him something he'll use this Father's Day at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices, every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Live sports are the one true reality entertainment, where a single dramatic moment can become timeless. In NASCAR, Motor Racing Network's live broadcasts elevate your senses to the sights, sounds, and struggles taking place on the racetrack.
Keselowski to the bottom of the racetrack. He tries to slide up. Newman is there. Sideways is Keselowski.
The power of radio to the imagination of the listener. Tune in to the Motor Racing Network. Visit MRN.com for an affiliate list in your local area.
Come join us every weekend at America's Tailgate Party, NASCAR USA. Hi, I'm Rob Tanner, your host and master of the grill, as we get you ready for high-octane NASCAR racing with hot laps and hot tracks. We serve up 2 hours of the best hits in country music and keep you up to date with racing news and features you won't find anywhere else. Sit down and have a seat. It's a regular weekend pit stop for country music at the speed of sound. NASCAR USA on the Motor Racing Network.
Let's talk more fantasy racing on The Inside Line. Here's Robbie and Tyler.
Welcome back to Fantasy Racing Talk. In the break, it was highly
Tyler, we're
interesting.
talking about anything but fantasy racing.
This is Rich Culbreth, Robbie Mays, and I'm Tyler Burnett. And Robbie, let me bring up something first before you bring yours up.
All right.
Robbie wants to know if your hair would crunch if you touch it.
It looks crunchy.
No, it's really good right now.
Okay.
Sometimes I do put a little bit too much product in it, and it feels like it would break.
Thank you for dressing up today.
I've never seen frosted tips that have gray hair on the end of it.
Hey, look, that's all natural. It's all natural. I
really
guarantee that. Listen, I got a bone to pick with you guys. 2 weeks ago, you guys called me a cheater, and
you are.
I was watching, and see, I watch the show every single week, and we have a big screen TV there in the office area. So when I'm sitting there working, I hear you guys start to talk, and I'm like, I hear you guys, you're giving me accolades on how well I did after Charlotte. And I moved up to 9th in the points at that point, and you were saying, hey, congratulations, but you know, he picks his before, like 5 minutes before the race starts and all that. And then Robbie says, I'm a cheater. Here's what I think we've got that, so we'll roll that back here.
Every Friday we make our picks before we see any Goodyear rubber on the track. Rich picks his picks 10 minutes before the green flag, so he sees every single practice.
He cheats.
Every single qualifying, and we stick with our teams all the way through, and I beat him last week by doing that strategy. So that's what it sounded like, Robbie. What the heck was that?
Well,
you called me a cheater.
Of course, you know this means war.
I managed to go 3 weeks without him. I managed to go 3 weeks with him thinking that it was you and not me.
Yeah, I was thinking it was you that said. I remember someone called me a cheater.
Yeah.
He said, "Yeah, he's a cheater," and you kind of went along with it too. So you're a accomplice. You're a accomplice to his comment. So
I just said you have an advantage because when we roll into a weekend, we don't see a single car on the track before we pick our picks, and yet you, as soon as all the checkered flags fly for practice,
how does that make me a cheater?
You pick your team.
How does that make me a cheater?
It's not a cheater. It's just if I was doing what you were
you call
doing,
me a
I would
cheater?
be higher than you in points.
No.
It's not that
Hey, look,
hard.
whose fault is that? Whose fault is that you guys wait until after qualifying and practice?
It's his. It's his rule.
It's programming.
This is a great show. And you guys fill us in on who's going to be good at the track that we're going to be going to. And you guys talk about who's got the best averages. I mean, it's a great show, but I use it as a tool.
I know. You pick against us probably or something.
Well, no, and then I watch how qualifying goes, and I watch how practice goes. I know I've got all the information by the time they start that race.
You know everything.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it don't.
Wow.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question. I'm trying to move on.
You're not going to call me a cheater again, are
No. Let's go back to Michigan last week. A guy who ran in the top 10 all day, and I think maybe surprised a lot of people, and we're going to a racetrack where he's won at a bunch in the past, Tony Stewart. Do you consider putting – and we're going to Sonoma, and we're going to Daytona the week after that. Is Tony Stewart and a driver to put on your fantasy team at either of these next two racetracks?
I think on the road course, yes.
I'd consider him on the road course,
right,
definitely.
because he's cheap right now. He may have gone up a little bit. I haven't looked at the numbers, but he was like $13.75 before this past weekend, so he may have gone up, but he's still really cheap, and I think you can probably get away with a lot of cheap guys. A.J. Allmendinger is someone else you may want to have on your team at Sonoma. Tony Stewart is someone that's going to be fairly cheap. I even say Danica Patrick might be someone that you might want to consider. Again, watch qualifying, watch practice, and see how those guys are doing.
I would say Tony Stewart's better at Watkins Glen. I would say he's good at the road courses, but if you look at his numbers at Sonoma, in the last 10 years, he has 2 second-place finishes, and that's the only time he's ever finished in the top 5 at Sonoma. I mean, he has a 6th-place finish, a 10th place, and 9th place. Those were coming about 6 years ago. But his last 2 finishes at Sonoma were 12th and 19th, and then a 28th place finish. So he hasn't been in the top 10, in the last 3 years. I would say I would definitely think about him for the price, and I still am going to think about A.J. Allmendinger, even though he hasn't finished, in the top 22, 23 at Sonoma in the last, whatever. He's just unlucky there.
He's unlucky. You got that. You hit the nail on the head there. Yes, he's still fast. He led a lot of laps, I think, a year or two ago. But, yeah, he had some kind of mechanical issue, and then it knocked him out of the race. But I think you got to go with A.J. Allmendinger.
Yeah, 37th his last 2 races there. Another guy that is pretty cheap down there around the Tony Stewart range is Clint Boyer, who has a second-best 10-race average finish, 8 top 10s in the last 10 races. And I don't think we put him on our teams at all this year just because they have struggled for much of the season.
And he is very good at Sonoma. If you look at his numbers, he finished 3rd the last time we were there, 10th, 5th, and then going all the way through. He's been in the top 5 a lot in the last 10 years. That team, I'm just going to say it now, it's not very good. I mean, that team, they're not running well, but I don't think you need a very fast car coming to Sonoma, don't you think? I mean, A.J. Allmendinger, they don't have fast cars per se,
No.
Top 10 cars, but they still run up front. If you're a good road courser, you're a good road courser.
Right, and they're going to look to capitalize at Watkins Glen and at Sonoma. They're going to look to – it's just like the restrictor plate racing. They're going to qualify because you're not working on pure horsepower like you do at Michigan or some of these mile-and-a-half tracks. These guys like Tony Stewart, like Danica Patrick, like Clint Boyer, those guys are looking to capitalize on this opportunity.
Yeah, another guy that I probably will start is Kurt Busch. He finished 2nd the last time we were there, and he also has 4 top 5s in the last 5 races at Sonoma. So those are some guys you can think about at Sonoma. Coming up next, we'll talk about maybe our winners and maybe look ahead to Daytona. You're watching the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show presented by Hercules Tires.
We'll be right back in just a moment to talk more fantasy racing with Tyler and Robbie here on the Inside Line.
Whatever you drive, wherever you go, Hercules Tires will get you there, whether you're running on dirt or running a job. Our dependable, high-quality tires are the perfect fit for your needs. For unmatched value, selection, and warranty with industry-leading road hazard protection, there's only one choice: Hercules Tires. To learn more, visit HerculesTire.com or call 800-677-9535. Hercules Tires, ride on our strength.
O'Reilly. Father's Day is June 19th. If you're having a hard time deciding what to get, stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts, where you'll find gift cards and hundreds of great Father's Day gifts. From tools to flashlights, O'Reilly Auto Parts has exactly what he wants. Get him something he'll use this Father's Day at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices, every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Looking to find the best place for all the latest NASCAR Sprint Cup, Xfinity, Camping World Truck, K&N, and Modified Series news? MRN.com is the place to go. Your online home for NASCAR news, opinion, podcasts, videos, race schedules, results, and statistics. Award-winning motorsports writers keep you informed and up-to-date on all the latest breaking NASCAR news and in-depth stories and opinion. MRN.com, your online home for all the NASCAR information you're looking for. We now return to the Inside Line with Robbie Mays and Tyler Burnett.
Our final break behind us here on the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show. Thank you for Hercules Tires sponsoring this madness that we have on this show each and every week, especially this week because Rich Culbreth is on the show. His first time dressing up this week.
What? I dress up every day.
Rich walked in this morning. I wasn't sure if he was going to be on our show or if he had to go make a court
to a
appearance
funeral or something.
Yeah.
Wow.
You guys are nuts.
So we're looking at Sonoma and then also Daytona. 2 wild card races coming up. Could we see 2 different winners or 2 new winners?
Well, let me throw in
2 races.
The following week, we go to Kentucky, brand new pavement, brand new surface. They tested there earlier this week. I think it's 3 wild cards coming up over the next.
I'd say
3 weeks.
Kentucky is less of a wild card because if you have fast cars, you can probably win at Kentucky, but anyone can win at Sonoma and at Daytona.
I'd love seeing first-time winners. First-time winners or even just a winner that hasn't won yet this year. We've got 10 different winners right now. We've got 6 more spots left for the chase. I would love to fill those last 6 spots with people that have won races. That'd just be neat. We haven't reached that point yet.
How many total winners do we get before the chase starts?
I say 12.
I was going 13.
Yeah, I'm around that ballpark. 13.
I mean,
maybe
what are we at
14
right
the
now?
most.
Yeah, we're at 10.
10.
Yeah.
So 2 more. I mean, you think Chase Elliott probably wins one.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle Larson, maybe,
Dale Jr. hasn't won yet.
Dale Jr. hasn't won.
He could win at Daytona.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Dale Jr. could win on any of the mile-and-a-half racetracks right now. I mean, they're struggling just a bit, but I do think they can win a restrictor plate race.
I was thinking about this earlier today. When it comes to Daytona, I know we're looking 2 or 3 weeks ahead before we get there, but that team has really struggled at Daytona and at Talladega this year. Do you start Dale Jr.? I think it's hard not to, considering what he's done, but he has spun it out at Talladega and Daytona this year, and he burned my team, and I'm sure he's burned a lot of other people's teams as well.
And he finished demolishing Amelia in Talladega back in May. So
don't bring that one back.
That car's not coming back again. But that was a car that won, 2 plate races last year, won a qualifying race last year at Daytona. So, it's Hendrick Motorsports to me right now is struggling as a whole, other than Chase Elliott. I think Junior's struggling right now. Obviously, Casey Kane has struggled for a couple of years. Jimmy Johnson to me isn't where Jimmy Johnson should be at this point in the season, even though he's won already twice this year. But Chase Elliott is like the leader of the Hendrick Motorsports bunch right now,
which is weird.
Yeah,
it is.
It's very strange.
It is. I mean, you look at can Casey Kane win one?
That's a tough one. That team they're not there. They're missing something, and he hasn't even really finished in the top 10. He's never really been a factor, to be honest with you. So no, I don't think Casey Kane can win one.
So we agree that Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson probably are 2 best shots at winning, and then maybe a Dale Earnhardt Jr. at a restrictor plate track.
I'd say Austin Dillon is someone else.
Yeah.
Austin Dillon this year has
struggled
looked
lately though, a little bit. He struggled. He was better at the beginning of the year going into the Coke 600.
I agree, but that's a team that I think they're on the cusp of winning another race.
Yeah.
I mean, winning a race.
He's good at Daytona. So
yeah, that's true.
Your early picks to win Sonoma coming up next week.
You said on Kurt Busch. I think Kurt Busch. I go with AJ Allmendinger. I will go with Tony Stewart.
How many winners you got?
About. How many winners do I have?
I mean, you've picked 3
you're talking about
winner.
just as far as winners go.
Winner.
Kurt Busch. I'm going to go with Kurt Busch.
Yeah,
and a Toyota to win.
And Kurt Busch is a Chevy.
I know he is, but that's my strategy. I always go with a Toyota to win because they've won so many, and then I go with Kurt Busch, who I know he drives a Chevy, but I always like to mix it up. I mean, I don't like putting my eggs all in one basket.
Yeah.
But if you think Kurt Busch is going to win, no doubt, why would you not pick a Chevy?
Well, you don't know who's going to win the race. But Toyota's won so many times this year, you're crazy not to put them as far as the manufacturer as the winner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was also leaning
Look, I'm not in 8th place for no reason.
Okay.
Wow. Okay. I was also leaning towards Kurt Busch as my early favorite to win next week at Sonoma and Daytona. I don't know. I'm going to draw a name out of a hat for Daytona, I think.
Yeah. I like Joey Logano at the road course. He swept both races at Watkins Glen. He finished 5th at Sonoma last year. I think Logano wins his first race at Sonoma. What do you think of that one?
It's a good pick. But again, it's a wild card. Who knows? Wow. We don't know.
Kyle Larson will be good, I think.
Yeah, Kyle Larson
got a shot.
He's been on my team for a couple of weeks, and I'm gonna hold on to him for another.
Carl
couple
Edwards,
weeks too.
Maybe. Sonoma's coming up next week. We have 2 races.
Rango says go with Kurt Busch.
Greg Biffle, I think he said. I couldn't make it out. 2 races in Iowa this weekend. Hopefully you listen to those. The Trucks and the Xfinity Series. For Rich Culbreth, Robbie Mays, our producer, Craig Moore.
And happy Father's Day.
And happy Father's Day, like he said. We'll talk to you next week here on the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show presented by Hercules Tires.
You've been listening to The Inside Line, presented by Hercules Tires. Stream us every Friday on MotorRacingNetwork.com or on the MRN app. The Inside Line is also available on demand at the MRN.com Media Center, or download it through iTunes or Stitcher. The Inside Line is a production of the Motor Racing Network.